Hello friends, welcome to Multiverse, and as you know that we are exploring the stars which are in the close vicinity, and today we have a very distinct candidate to discuss. It is red dwarf to talk about, but it has a very peculiar characteristics. So what is this object called? It is called Captain Star, and today we are going to tell you about the six most fascinating facts about Captain Star. And to examine this star up close, let's get into our imaginary spaceship and get into orbit of this particular star. So here we are, as you can see, this star is rotating nicely and it is red dwarf. And what do we know about red dwarf? Red dwarfs are very dim, and they emit very little light, and most of the light that the red dwarf emits are in the red spectrum, infrared spectrum, which is invisible to human eye. So therefore this is nothing unique when it comes to understanding this star as a red dwarf. It's about 12.83 light years from Earth, very close by from the universe standpoint, but even light takes 12 years to reach us. And it is very dim red dwarf, very hard to look at even from using a telescope. You need a special equipment to look at it. It's extremely dim red dwarf in the close vicinity. What is other unique thing is that even though the size of this red dwarf is nearly 30% of the sun, so it is not such a small red dwarf, but the light which this star emits is only 1.2% of the sun's light. So you can imagine how dim this would be. First of all, it is a red dwarf. That means it is emitting infrared radiation, and it is emitting only 1% of the sun radiation. So it is emitting very little amount of radiation. So even though it has a substantial size, it has a good size which is like 30% of the sun. Now, it is known to us based on its trajectory that it actually was a star in the Omega Centauri cluster. And if you know, Omega Centauri cluster is a globular cluster close by, which has a lot of stars, 100,000 stars. So this star, Captain Star, came out of this Omega Centauri cluster and now moving freely away from it. And now this is something very unique. Why? Because Omega cluster was a dwarf galaxy orbiting the our Milky Way. It's like a satellite galaxy which was later absorbed because of the gravitational tidal forces by the Milky Way. And this is how it was absorbed. Basically, it got into the Milky Way, became a globular cluster within our own Milky Way. So it had its own gravity, it had its own stuff, number of stars, material, etc. Now all that is part of the Milky Way. And the way it entered the Milky Way this many years back, it was at a angle, and that angle was opposite of how the Milky Way is rotating. So this globular cluster rotates in the retrograde. It goes in the opposite direction. For instance, if you look at the sun is going in one direction, the entire globular cluster is moving in the opposite direction. So this is a unique part about this particular star, because it originated from the globular cluster which is in the retrograde, and because of that the star is also moving retrograde. It is moving around the center of the galaxy in the opposite direction. So since it is moving away from sun, it was at its closest about 10,000 years back, but now it is moving away, and it is moving away quite fast because of the speed at which it is moving is also very high. Now the most peculiar part about this is that it has a couple of planets around it, at least 2 or 3 that we have identified, and there is a planet called Captain B, which is in the habitable zone of this planet. And since the star came out from the dwarf galaxy, which is now a globular cluster, globular clusters and these dwarf galaxies have a very long life because there is nothing much happening, and since this is a red dwarf, it will have a very long shelf life, and because of that, the planets formed also will have a longer time around the star. So since the star came out along with this entire system, this planet is estimated to be about 11 billion years old. Our sun is only 4.5 billion years old, so this planet is quite old and it is in the habitable zone, even though the star is emitting very little light, very little radiation. But I think this is an interesting fact that it has a planet, a very old planet, like a super earth planet, and it is rotating in the habitable zone, and it is about 11 billion years old. So it is more than twice the age of Earth, and that is why it will be very interesting to examine this up close. Maybe James Webb will be able to throw some light on this planet, which is again in the close vicinity, so it should not be very difficult to look at. And that is why this star system is interesting and quite intriguing, because if there is a old planet, the habitable zone, there could be chance of having water on the surface, and maybe some sort of complex life on this planet. And it is actually rotating nicely in the habitable zone, so there could be a lot of time given for life to evolve and multiply and evolve using different permutation and combination. So this is something which is quite interesting, and I thought I will bring this to you in my live show Multiverse. If you know anything more than what I have told you today, do not hesitate to send in your comments. And as always, thanks for watching. I will meet you in the next edition of Multiverse.